all the town halls all around Melbourne, mostly town halls, because they've all got a big town hall somewhere. There would be dances, no alcohol, just for teenagers, right? Everywhere. And the one where I grew up was Box Hill Town Hall, and they had a band called Tempest. Now, in those days, Melbourne bands would have 2-3 sets of equipment travelling ahead of them, and they would go half-hour spot, Box Hill, out to Ringwood, all the way around, Greater Melbourne area. So they would work all night, so you'd go there. I used to pay $1, go to the town hall, and I'd see the Purple Hearts, the Loved Ones, the Masters Apprentices, Levi Smith's Clefs, the Twilights, and bands I can't even remember now. There'd be more. They'll come back to me later. But they're just bands. And so that's when I first started to see live bands, one after another. And there was upstairs room, downstairs rooms, too many bands. And I was just starting to play music, so I got interested in it. But then I didn't see any other gigs until later on, when I started to go to Festival Hall, and I saw... I mean, that's maybe not so relevant, because they were just bands. Anyone could go to a concert. Like, you see Jethro Tull, and Stevie Wonder, and Frank Zappa.
And he played in Australia.
Yeah. When they'd all play at Festival Hall, which has now been bought by the Christians. But then when I left school and went to Teachers College, I was playing drums in a band. And we
famous
had
band. Famous band.
No, not a famous band. In fact, we were just right behind the 8-ball. We were just learning songs like Johnny Winter and trying to play like people we admired. And most bands start that way. But then in a year after me, when I went into second year, and the next first year behind us, the next lot of kids that come in, all of a sudden their hair's gotten long. And they smell funny, because they're, right? And it's like, so we were the last straight year of school kids that come out of school. We didn't know any, we just maybe have a beer, but we didn't, but the counterculture was starting to kick in, and that was Mick Conway. And he had a band called the Captain Matchbox Whoopee Band, which was a jug band, T-chest bass, and washboard, harmonica, all really good players, like real good,
What style?
Like 20s jug band music, like 1920s jazz, but played on like, what's the jug, you blow across the top of the jug, and it's a jug band. Then they got popular because they were crazy, like completely crazy, and were long hair and just out there.
With protests, like young people protest for the parents or not?
Yeah. See, that all happened around, I went to Teachers College in '69, and went to see Woodstock movie at the movies, and go, but we were all pretty straight. And then, like I say, Mick Conway's year, those kids come behind us, they'd sort of started to kind of go, wait a minute, this is not right. There's the Vietnam War was on, and the demonstrations were starting to happen, and young people were starting to go, because I was 20, and I could have been called up into the army, sent to Vietnam, but I was lucky, didn't get called up. Friends of mine did, went to Vietnam, came back all screwed up, or didn't come back,
Okay, and
so
this time we finished 16, yeah?
Yeah, this is 69, 70, 69, 70.
Yeah. And what popular, what style, what group on this time? You're going on concerts, you're friendly, maybe?
Rock and roll and heavy blues influence. Like there was like the Masters Apprentices were heavy blues influence. Chain, and I met Matt Taylor in the '80s, and Wayne Burke rang me up from the Falcons, and who I'd played with in the past, and I played drums on an album for Matt Taylor, who was with Chain. What's that song? Broke my back when I spit on a guard. Boom, dun, dun. The jail song.
Clapton's blues and Led Zeppelin, lots of bands
Big, yeah.
like that sound. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and then the Maoris came over, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They were a Maori group, all looked like Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. On you have copy American style, but on this time I know Australian made a new sound, new style, funny. When I listen Eagle Rock. Yeah, with
Daddy Cool.
funny angle. Yeah. Daddy Cool, because with very strange style. Only Australian people.
Yeah, it's like, but that's what happens with music, isn't it? It's like, because American music was originally, it's all based on the blues, right? As you know, and if there hadn't been the blues, it wouldn't exist.
But American blues is very seriously is not funny with blues. I blues. Australian blues.
Well, there's a reason for that, and that is that Ross Wilson and Ross Hannaford, who were kind of like formed Daddy Cool, before they had been in a band called the Sons of the Vegetal Mother. You heard of them, Mick?
I have indeed.
Yeah, and they had and they also had a band called the Party Machine, and they had a book of lyrics which were banned for being politically, and obscene, and they were psychedelic, psychedelic like every which way, and then they formed. I know this because I know Ross very well and played with Ross for years. That they had this little. They were always very interested in doo-wop, It wasn't particularly rock and roll. It was doo-wop.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Bassman. Yeah. They're 50s, and that's what they loved. And Ross had a very deep voice, and so they were mucking around, and they had a little band, and they went to do their serious music at this the Maiponga Rock Festival in South Australia, and
very popular in Southern Australia festival.
Yeah.
What name this festival?
Maiponga was
Maiponga.
Yeah. Then there was Sunbury later on, and there's Mulwala. There's been a few of them, but what happened? This is really interesting because their serious band, were like, long hair, just going long solos. And then Daddy Cool came on.
Yeah, very famous.
And everyone went completely nuts because no one had danced for a long time. Everyone had been kind of like listening to guitar players doing long solos, long drum solos. It was all very serious. And they'd sort of forgotten how to dance.
But the Daddy Cool have different group on these festivals.
The Sons of the Vegetal Mother.
Yeah. And he is all people on festival very funny on Daddy Cool or not Mother.
Daddy Cool's a good time. They were just a good time, fun band and simple. I mean, they were just.
Have you not been on this festival?
No, I don't know what I was doing there because I didn't meet Ross until '72, and he was already. I met him at a party after his girlfriend went off to collect him from a gig. He'd just come back from America with Daddy Cool, and I thought, this is the strangest man I've ever seen. I was tripping at the time, so it was like a cartoon character walked into the room. Like I'm in a cartoon now. This guy's not real. He just looks so strange, but just fun, simple. But they had really good harmonies. That was their thing. Simple, solid dance grooves, 4-part harmonies. That was them. And it lasted for 2-3 years. Then it was done. Then other bands came in.
Interesting. Okay, now say about the Saints. You know this
the Saints, yeah. I just happened to be at a party in Brisbane Uni in 74, 75. Would have been 75. And I think I was playing...
Look on concerts. You look, he's on concerts how he is playing?
No, I've got no connection with them really.
Yeah, but you were at the gig.
I was at the gig, yeah.
That's what Anton's asking.
And I just didn't like them because they were just angry, rough, and I wasn't into that. I had just discovered Jamaican music, which is angry, but it was beautiful too. It was like, how can you be so heavy and so beautiful at the same time? You know what I mean? It's like, so I was just listening to Toots and the Maytals and Bob Marley and these punk bands. Nah, not me, not for me. But it took off, very, very big in Australia.
But with a culture maybe a different state, because with on Sovereign, or not Sovereign, with Queensland, from Queensland side.
Queensland, yeah, from Brisbane.
But in Melbourne not have punk culture.
I
know Police State Queensland on last time. Now it's Victoria, but
Queensland very much police state.
Yeah.
I felt when I moved back to Melbourne, and when I remember crossing the border into New South Wales and suddenly getting this feeling I'm not in Queensland anymore. In Melbourne, actually, before I moved to Brisbane, there was a band called Lobby Lloyd and the Coloured Balls. Now, Lobby Lloyd could be considered to be the grandfather of Melbourne punk. He didn't call it punk. It was just extremely loud. And I remember going to see them a few times in Bertie's and Sebastian's, the little inner city disco clubs. You know. So Lobby Lloyd, but that was already happening in 72, 73.
Lobby Lloyd with name, people or group with...
Lobby Lloyd, I can't remember, I don't know where he came from. He was in the Coloured Balls when I first saw him.
In Australia, the Maiden.
No money, lots of integrity.
Yeah. He's very, very pure musician. Very pure.
Yeah. So, and then, did he play with Thorpe?
Yeah, I think so.
Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs, they were kind of early heavy. It was just, they're playing Bebop-A-Lula, an old rock classics, but louder and faster than anyone else. So it was. I think what they appealed to is the Australian love of baking your head in the sun, drinking too much beer and going...
So at this time...
Going crazy. Yeah. I remember seeing the Coloured Balls and the drummer, Tony Cahill, who went on to replace Snowy Fleet and the Easy Beats. Well, they were a punk band, really. I remember seeing him at Box Hill Town Hall, that town hall gig I used to go to when I was still a school kid. And his drummer had sticks, they looked like sawn-off billiard cues. They were clubs. You know, it's like, never seen a guy hit so hard. And it was like, and it kind of hurt, you know, it hurt you. Hurt your ears, and you could feel the kind of, oh no, my liver's dissolving. It's strange all over the world. I think everyone's run out of ideas, and the world's gotten stranger and stranger. It was very simple from the 60s on. It was like, the old way's no good, you know, we don't like this bullshit. And music was always a protest, and because you were always allowed to be outrageous here, up to a point. Like Sons of the Vegetal Mother, they produced their lyrics book, and the police raided the gig and seized them all, and they were in court. And but that only happens sometimes. Usually you could dress any way you like, be as loud as you like, swear on stage.
But because Australia it's largely an outdoor culture, bands it's a good life.
Well, yeah, I travelled around. I moved back to Queensland in the 70s and travelled around the top end, mainly around Cairns area, Kuranda and the Tablelands with the band. And we just put on gigs in local halls, and we get paid in boxes of vegetables. It's like, oh, we need petrol money. I remember the guitar player's girlfriend had this little ticket box in Atherton, this hall in Atherton, a little ticket box, and we went in the ticket box, and he goes, how much? He said, we didn't take much money, but look at this. Boxes of like broccoli and mangoes and pawpaws and zucchinis and big sticky marijuana heads. And it's like, because all the local hippies come out of the bush and they dance all night and they bring what they got. I didn't think we even hardly had enough petrol money to get back to Cairns, but we were eating well.
Yeah.
Very good. What do you think? What Australian group very important for the study Australian rock? What do you think? What group?
Which group?
Yeah.
Or even just a lineage, like who do you think is?
Johnny O'Keefe.
Yeah.
Johnny O'Keefe was he was the wild one, but he wore a suit jacket and he just you make me want to shout, let my hands jumping, let my legs pumping. There was like an American hit that he remade, but he filled concert halls and went crazy. He just like put on a big show. And then there was, I think, Max Merritt and the Meteors came over from New Zealand and took the place by storm and hold a reputation for, if not the best, and one of the best pub bands ever. They could just hold a crowd all night, R&B, rock and roll. He's left us now, Max. Billy Thorpe. The Easy Beats. Now, when I came out on a boat from England with my parents, I've told Mick this story. I was quite sad about it because I didn't like the Seekers. I thought they were weak. Just not my cup of tea.
Australian music.
Rolf Harris.
Before Johnny O'Keefe's folk music, do you know what I mean?
And Bush, yeah.
And Bush.
Let me wander north to the homestead, pub with no beer, Slim Dusty. Well, there's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear, than to stand in the bar of a pub with no beer. Yep. That was it. Country.
And all very peace and calm and nice. It's boom, boom, and it's no rock and roll.
And then Johnny O'Keefe come along. And Cold Joy, they were out there. They were starting to, but they were just copying America. What are the Americans doing? Because then Buddy Holly came out and toured. Bill Haley came out and toured. Jazz was always very big in the city. And the youth culture, up until around the mid-'60s, was like you were a rocker, leather, greasy hair, listen to Elvis, and those Carl Perkins and all the rockabilly guys, or you were a jazzer. You wore this nice jacket, corduroy pants, shirt and tie, and you went to jazz clubs. And it was very. And then the jazzers kind of turned into mods. You got the Beatles and the Who, but there's always been that rocker culture, the rockabilly guys. I remember at school it was like there was a rocker band and there was a mod band, and you were friends with one or the other.
It's very clear.
Tribal.
Very clear delineation.
Big fights outside Box Hill Town Hall.
Yeah. People were very. It was one or the other. Very. Even in the 80s when I played, there were rockabillys, there were punks, and there were hippies. Do you know what I mean? And they you go to the pub and they would all sit in one corner. Would all get along.
When did the emos and the goths arrive?
Yeah. But it all changed.
But so what you asked was who started it all? Who's the kind of like he's the Abraham of the, if you like, Abraham's the father of all that religion and stuff, but who's the Abraham of Australian rock and roll? I would say it's Johnny O'Keefe.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about Jerry Humphreys being the first Australian, like that thing that stopped the American, that wasn't so American. Yeah,
it was suddenly it's like they found a new twist on it. Yeah. The Loved Ones, they were an enormously influential band. And they brought out there was a rock and roll R&B song, but it was in dun 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 dun. It's 3/4. It's like what? But it was heavy. It was like, what's that? And they wore ponchos.
Yep.
I remember seeing them at Box Hill. It was like, what are these guys? What are they wearing? I'd never seen a poncho before. They were just trying to find a new way and a way to make it Australian,
But at Australia.
Leningrad Cowboys. I know. I've heard.
Leningrad Cowboys with
Yeah,
Finland.
that's all I've heard. Oh, Finland.
Yeah.
Oh,
Leningrad only name. My town. With last name. Leningrad Cowboys with punk, very good, maybe hearted, I don't know.
very pointy shoes and big. Yeah.
But it's not Russian.
Okay, I did not know that. I guess the Spandau Ballet were an English band. They were in.
Yeah. What you know about Russia? Okay.
What do I know about Russia?
Yeah.
I know that some of their best fighter pilots were women. I watched the document and the who was it? The witches. These women that did the biplanes. They were flying biplanes at night over German lines and bombing old style World War I style and score. I watched a documentary on it, and it's like, and I think that freaked the Germans out. They weren't just good fighters. They had a psychological effect on the Germans who could not believe that a woman could be shooting at them in a plane. Didn't you know that?
That's right. I was explaining to Anton that Australia's first idea of Russians was chaos from Get Smart, and Natasha and Boris.
It's all filtered through Hollywood. So
we're not with animation. We not know. Yeah.
It's so accurate though. It's like I'm watching. It's like
Well, I didn't know anything about Russia. James Bond movies. When I was a kid, I read all the James Bond novels, right?
Maybe.
And that's all I knew. And I,
007, you know,
007? Yeah. Shaken. What did someone say after Sean Connery died? Someone posted, I'm shaken and stirred.
Yeah.
But so ignorant. And except just propaganda, you know, the Russians are the bad guys. You know, it's like after the Germans, because I grew up in England, I was born in 51, and the Germans were the bad guys. And I grew up playing with my friends. It's like no one wanted to be the Germans, they wanted to be the English, you know. We didn't even think about the Russians. And then later on, it's like, oh, hang on, the Russians are the bad guys now. You know, and the bad guys are always changing in the story, as you know. Then it was the Taliban. And then now it's kind of, you know, the Islam. It's just always, the bad guy is always, that role can change, but we've always got to have a bad guy. For a while, it was you guys.
Australians
But it wasn't you guys. It was the people up the top pulling the strings, right? Yeah.
But a lot of Australians thought Russia and Germany were the same place.
Wow.
Like it's just the same place.
Wow.
Like, you know, like in...
Who thought that?
My mum.
Really?
Yeah, like my mum would just go German, Russian. Aren't they the same? Isn't it the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's no...
They're all foreigners.
They're all foreigners. You know? They're all... Yeah, you know. Like...
Well, but you know, well, people will go to England and say insult a Scotsman by saying he's English, and Welsh. Like I grew up right next door to Wales. The Welsh, they're a different nation. You can say, oh, you English people, and they will get very upset because they're not English. They're Welsh. They've got a different language.
Yeah. See, Australians think that Europe is a thing. You're European. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that means that you must all be the same. Do you know what I mean? That, you know,
maybe different cheers.
I told you a story about when I fly, when I arrive in Australian arrival. A policeman say coronavirus beginning in March. And ask where are you from? I'm from Russia, and he asked doctor, Russia is European or Asia?
It's what?
I don't know.
European or Asian?
Well, it's kind of both, isn't it? It's a big place.
I understand. What do you recommend?
1980, there was a string of gigs called Rock Against Racism, and they were at, I remember, Northcote Town Hall, Collingwood Town Hall, were the big ones, big venues, and that's where you get like Jambi, Coloured Stone, Archie Roach, No Fixed Address, and then Lucky Dog, because we had a regular. This is Ross Hannaford. This is when I started playing with Ross. He kind of left rock and roll behind and discovered reggae. And but anyway, so that's when I met the other side of Australia. That's when I met Black Australians, Native Australians, and then that's when I met the South Americans and the West Indians. and the Africans that had been here all along, you know, but you didn't meet them because we were playing white music, white audience, and then we started meeting these other guys. And
but Australia was so culturally controlled that we knew as much.
I didn't know what Aboriginal people were until
we knew as much about Russia as we did about Aboriginal people growing up. We were taught as much about Russia as we were about, you know, about Aboriginal Australia. So the Australia we grew up in, it's not like these people even existed, you know, which is why they were really important. And yeah, and so the myth of Australia was broken. It was really broken when you started to meet these people and play in these people.
Yeah, I met Joe Guy. The first time I met Joe Guy, he was just angry and he didn't want to know me. He ended up we're like brothers now, but it took a while. Yeah. And it was music. Yeah. They had to start. So I had to play with him one time at the Sydenham. Yeah. You know, and he goes, "Hey, bro, you want to?" He said, "I'm putting a little band together. I'm going to do a tour around Australia." I'm in.
Yeah. But then, like, you know what a tour?
It's education.
Yeah. A tour around Australia means, I mean, you know, it's.
It was 4 months in a coaster, with I don't know how many flat tires and broken windscreens, and choked up carburetors, red dust. Yeah. Yeah. My old drum kit's still got red dust in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we met it in Elliot, which is the geographical centre of this continent. We did a workshop because we were being funded to do concerts and then workshops the next day. We did a workshop after the show, and we said, "What's happening? What are we doing?" We just do whatever they wanted, you know. And they said, "Oh, this is this band, the Tableland Drifters." They said, "Well, where are you fellas?" And they come, "All right, here's our gear. Show us what you got." They started playing, and the sound guy setting up, and we were recording them on a DAT recorder. They were the hardest rocking band I've ever heard in this country. The Tableland Drifters, just living out there. They had no equipment. You know, they're just rubbish amps, rubbish guitars. Yeah. The drums, luckily I'd been warned before we left, I had a big case full of old drumsticks and drum skins. Because it was like, they're going to have broken drum heads and not be able to get a new one. And somewhere there's a recording of the Tableland Drifters, and mate, they could blow Midnight Oil off the stage. Yeah. They were hard rocking boys.
There's a great movie called Samson and Delilah, which kind of taps in a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll show you this movie. It's an Australian movie about Aboriginal. It's really interesting, and it taps into a little bit of what these bands were like. But I mean,
Wrong Side of the Road is a good movie too. Yeah. Which is also about Aboriginal bands trying to make it. You know, was it the guy who had an aria that had the treaty song? Treaty. What's the treaty? Yeah.
Or are you thinking of?
Couldn't get a taxi to pick him up in St Kilda, and he's just been awarded. He's just like Australian of the Year or something, and got an aria award. Big man at the top of his game. Taxi wouldn't pick him up.
Same thing, Guruma Yunupingu. Yeah. The biggest, one of the most beautiful musicians this country's ever produced. Couldn't get a taxi in Melbourne because he was black. You know, it's
not just black. He's an abo.
Yeah, it's true. He's an abo. It's different. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but those bands are really important. You know what I mean? Those bands, like, you know, they're sort of.
Because they've helped educate the rest of us.
Yeah. And there are sort of also important bands in Melbourne that just keep rolling. Like Ross Hannaford played the SB every Sunday for
14 years, Monday night residency. Yeah. And I heard Angie, the sound man, told me one night when Bob Dylan was playing at the Palais across the road, there was a bunch of Americans standing behind him. It turned out to be a significant contingent of Bob's band. After sound check, gone across to the Aspie for a drink and a feed, and they're watching this band, and he heard one of them say, "Hey, it's lucky Bob didn't come in here tonight. We'd be out of a job."
But there's also bands like Nick Cave, but there's a guy called Roland
Howard, yeah.
He played in Melbourne for years and toured years. Kim Salmon from the Sciences.
Seen Kim Salmon of the Eastern with 8 people in the room.
Yeah. But they can't. They do, like, some musicians have careers so they get very big and then they kind of fall off. But these guys they play forever.
They just play. Yeah, they don't actually get the big fame. No. Radio Birdman.
Yeah.
Very important band. Sydney punk.
Dennis
Yeah.
Tech. Yeah.
Interesting.
And there was, I remember being in Sydney in '77 with Janie Conway in a sort of little feminist rock band. Once again, it was the same one with the male bass player and it was a male rhythm section, but it was a female band, and she was the boss. And we played at this in Redfern, this little feminist stronghold with a band called XL Capri. And the drummer was this little girl. I thought you could put your, like around her arms, you could just put your fingers around her arms. She's a skinny little girl, white little pink puffy dress.
Yeah.
Just like, she was fierce, man.
Woman rock
Solid.
popular in Australia. I know in...
They've been battling their way through over the years. Yeah.
Surprisingly, Kylie Minogue has done an enormous...
Yeah. The Spazzies.
The Spazzies.
The Spazzies, Melbourne all-girl punk band. Yeah.
Spazzies?
The Spazzies.
Yes. So Spazzies is okay. So if you are okay, so if somebody nerve strikes, this is called spasm.
Yeah, the
okay?
spazzo.
It's called
Yeah.
spasm. All right.
So if you're a total spaz,
Yeah. So if you have a disability in Australia, like you have cerebral palsy, the old Australian word for this is spastic, because you have spastic, you have spasms. Okay?
Yeah.
This word spastic becomes an insult. So in my playground, if you do something stupid or you fall over, the kids go, "Oh, you're spastic." All right, so it's an insult. Well, but the spazzies is kind of a bit kinder.
we'll have that.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole punk thing, isn't it? It's like, never mind the bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols.
So
Yeah.
they call themselves the spazzies because they said, we don't know how to play. We just sort of jerk around on stage. So they take the piss out of themselves.
Yeah, but they could play.
Oh, great. Oh, really good. But lots of, Do Re Mi with Deborah Conway.
Deborah Conway.
She did some amazing stuff. What's her name?
Oh, Chrissy Amphlett.
Chrissy Amphlett.
The Divinals.
She's
She's right up there.
Yeah.
You know the Divinals?
No.
Oh.
She's amazing.
Now, if you want to hear an Australian rock queen,
Yeah.
Chrissy Amphlett out in front of the Divinals.
But little Patty, do you know what I mean? She was sort of, not huge, but she's kind of part of that whole thing. She went on the Vietnam tours with Normie Rowe and all
Yeah,
those sorts of people.
Diz Randell.
Yeah. Who's
Not Diz. I mean Diz is Lynn Randell.
Yeah.
Lynn Randell's sister Dizzy. I know. That's right.
It's not Wendy Saddington. Who's the witchy chick? What's her name? You know the one I'm talking about. I'll think of it in a tick.
Witchy.
Yeah. She does all the kind of. She released Veve and all those sorts of albums. I remember it. I'll think of it. Yeah.
I haven't listened. You can't keep up with everything. You can't listen to everything. You can't. You just got to listen to what you love. I reckon, and keep your mind open.
And there's lots of bands that make it, like the Howling Bells. Do you know what I mean?
Never heard of them.
Yeah, well, they were huge in England. See, it's a funny thing. Like bands that get sort of big in Melbourne, get to Sydney, and then they hit the roof of Australia. Do you know what I mean? That's it. It's enough gigs, and then
20 million people.
yeah, then they go straight to England, and they become huge, and we don't even know in Australia.
Air Supply did that.
Yeah. Air Supply still play Korea.
Right.
Yeah. Who is it?
We did a gig a few years ago. The Vest did a support gig with Plan 8 or something.
Oh yeah.
And it was we met there. There was fundraising for the radio station. We were talking to these guys, and apparently they're huge in Mongolia.
Yeah.
Nowhere else.
Yep.
They go to Mongolia. It's like rock stars. Come back home. No one. We didn't know who they were.
This is a little sort of like ska reggae kind of band from Australia. All right. Plan A, they play at the pub down here. They're not a big band, but in Mongolia they are rock stars.
Yeah, it's a good place for the start.
Yeah. But I suppose when it was like there was the who were the big jet airplane? I'm riding on a big jet airplane. Who were they? The brother and sister combo.
Oh, Matt Julia Stone.
Yeah, Matt and Julia Stone. They're huge in America.
Richard Clapton.
Yeah. Richard Clapton's big. Yeah.
And then there's your glam rock bands, and the Skyhooks were big, because Skyhooks were kind of like the next wave after Daddy Cool. And I remember Ross saying, he actually said it in an interview, that, you know, Daddy Cool were like, they were royalty. They were the best band to go and see. They were number one because they, you know, they just broke the prejudice against buying Australian records for a start. And then Ross, I remember Ross saying when, like, he went to see Skyhooks and he thought, yeah, it's moved on. He knew that the energy had moved, that they were last year. And he saw Skyhooks and the way people were reacting, going, okay, this is, and so he just went off and pursued what he loved, which was Jamaican music.
Yeah. And Skyhooks moved beyond that kind of 3-chord blues. So moved into, you know, very...
It was riffs and costumes.
Riffs and costumes and very... Australian Crawl, James Rain.
Yeah,
you know?
Australian Crawl, they're pretty, yeah. And Sherbet.
Yeah.
People, you know, Sherbet were kind of like a satin band, you know, frilly and satin, but they were a hard rocking band. I saw them in Sydney and they blew me away. They were really good live. You know, that some bands, it's like you listen to the records, you know, I don't like these guys. You see them live and you can't not like them because they're so powerful and together, you know. They were like that.
And Australian audiences aren't like American audiences. If Australian audiences don't like you, they'll just ignore you. Do you know what I mean? It's not like American. Australian audiences are really, there's a joke.
Reserved. Yeah,
when
go.
they say, okay, so, you know, how do you know if an audience in Melbourne hates you? They watch you like this. How do you know if an audience in Melbourne loves you? They watch you like this.
Yeah.
And it's very true.
Yeah.
One day I buy about, you say about glam music, one vinyl disc.
Glam, yeah.
Australian, and I very like maybe melody. I listen all group with different group. I very like Mississippi with group.
Yeah.
With
Mississippi,
glam.
yeah. Isn't that who became...
Kings on the ring on the Kings.
Didn't they become... Isn't that who Little River Band were before?
Could be. Yeah.
I think Little River...
Yeah.
They became Little River Band, and they made it big in America. Yeah. Oh, that's right, because the singer, and I'm just remembering another one, is Axiom,
Yep.
which was Brian Cadd, and who's the singer who was actually originally in the Twilights?
Doug Parkinson?
No, Doug Parkinson. No, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And there was a guy, I shared a house with Leo DeCastro and friends. He was a soul singer from New Zealand, Maori boy. He never made it big, but always reliable live, you know, just...
But lots of bands too, like, you know, sort of Tam and Shad and Buffalo. And
Tully.
Yeah.
On now maybe old.
Just Australian, like sort of the Atlantics and all those sort of...
Oh, the Atlantics. I was just trying to think, was it the Ventures?
The Ventures were English.
Oh, okay, yeah, the Atlantics. They were a surf band,
Yeah.
Sydney surf band. Soft music.
No, surf music.
Surf music, yeah. Well, the Atlantics, they were out of Sydney, and they did a remake of Bombora.
Yeah.
Bambara, yeah.
I think that's the first record I ever heard in my life was Wipeout by the Safaris, but they were American.
I make program about
Yeah.
Atlantics
Yeah.
on Russian.
Yeah, you have.
People
Okay,
know
yeah.
this Atlantic.
I saw one some years ago. I don't know if they're still going. The bass player from
Sorry, Bambora is not song Atlantics.
No, wasn't it?
It is,
they all sound the same to
They
me.
all
Those-
sounded like the same.
Yeah.
With surf music. No. With Tarantino music, but after
Oh,
that,
Tarantino.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that about movies, isn't it? Yeah. Well, he brought back Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
There was a teenage wedding, and watching flowers on the wall,
Statler Brothers,
and
yeah.
it's all that stuff from like, and then what happened before that, before Tarantino? Remember that movie, The Commitments?
Yep.
What?
The Commitments. It was about an Irish covers band.
Irish soul band.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and all the songs, you know, they re-recorded and reproduced them. Knock on Wood, Land of a Thousand Dances. You know, Wilson picked the Stax, Motown and stuff, and And then for years after that, you'd be at a gig and someone would go, play something from the Commitments. And I'd be going, you mean Wilson Pickett, don't you? You know, they don't even know about all the artists that in the movie it was all covers, but everyone doesn't know about Otis Redding, you know. Yeah. I've got a little band called The Vests, and we kind of like, we try to play covers that nobody knows or likes. Like Pat and I, we learned, what's it, Latest Flame by Elvis. I love that. Ding, 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 ding. Would you believe? Ding. God, I love it. And people going, what's that? I said, it's Elvis song. Yeah. It's Elvis. What are you talking about? Yeah. Blue Christmas. Yep. Yeah. Just what B-sides and uncovered covers, we call it. Yeah.
But kids, like I'm 50. My guitar students, they go, oh, okay, so you need to have you heard AC/DC? And they go, nah, kind of. I've heard of them. It's not part of their culture, you know.
Really, already?
Yeah.
Because I thought I did a music therapy session at the adult acute unit about a month ago now. 2 hours in the acute unit, which is the mental, the psych ward. And I've been playing for people with disabilities and mostly aged care, old people, for 12 years now. And I've got this massive collection of songs. They were all useless. No good. No. So luckily I had Working Class Man, Jimmy Barnes. I had Am I Ever Gonna See Your Face Again? And I'm racking my brains and I'm looking through this book and I'm going, why are there so many songs about rainbows? You know, Kermit's song. Everybody started singing along. And I'm going, phew. Everybody in the whole place. Everyone loves the frog.
Well, I teach kids guitar and they want to play these little 3-chord punk songs, you know. Is it A, E, D, A, E, D, A, E,
Wild Thing. Wild Thing is a universal, cross the generation. Down, everyone, yeah.
I say to the kids, I say, okay, so this punk music is just folk music, all right, on electric guitars, you know, it's the same chords and things like that. And they say to me, what is folk music? What's folk music, you know? And you play them Dylan, like Bob Dylan, they go, who's that guy? Like, it's really interesting.
Yeah, think about that. I really like playing, well, I'm going to raise a fuss and I'm going to raise a holler. Eddie Cochran. Yeah, Summertime Blues. It's like, that's punk.
Yeah.
It's what, in 1956 came out, something like that. You know Eddie Cochran?
Some of those, you know the song. You go, oh yes, you've heard.
Eddie, so there's Elvis, right? But then Eddie Cochran, and who was the had the hubcaps? Died on his motorbike.
Oh no, you talked about.
Bebop-a-lula, she's my Gene Vincent. Yep. Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran, Conway Twitty.
Yeah.
Conway Twitty's an awesome rock and roller. The only trouble was he was the same time as Elvis, and he sounds just like Elvis. You know, it sounds just like Elvis when you listen to him, but he's not handsome.
Roy Orbison's fucking early rockabilly is as good as anyone's. Yeah, anyway, we get off the track.
Yeah, but see, all these things were kind of like, they were like, say, Johnny O'Keefe. Yeah. Like, and I used to work with a client.
What singer? Play.
Bring us back.
Only You.
Only You?
Yeah, Only You. Very famous singer.
The Platters or the Drifters?
Yeah, I only know that.
Can make this world seem right. That one.
He's better Elvis Presley.
Oh.
Frank Ifield.
Frank, Johnny Ray. I think the Only You was the Platters or the Drifters, one or the other, I'm not sure. Beautiful song. I was actually looking at the other day because I was looking through this book. It's one of those songs I thought, that one, I've got all the lyrics and chords, and I just couldn't get my voice and hands around it. So we'll put that one away. You know, you have a pile of songs, and then maybe out of 10 songs, maybe 3 or 4 I can actually do properly. You know, where I'm not making a fool of myself completely. But that's one. Only You. That's one of them. As I've gotten older, like I'm 69 now, and as I've gotten older, I've started to appreciate the previous decades because the first time I became aware of music, apart from what was on BBC Radio, was with Flanagan and Allen, and and just old music, English music hall, was when I saw the Beatles on TV in '62. And then, oh, what's this? And then I saw the Stones on TV. And then, so that's where I started. And I kind of sort of followed music through with, Hendrix and Cream and The Who and all that. And then as I started working as a musician, it's like, you need to learn this. And it's like Elvis, early 60s, the 50s. And then I started working in aged care. And it's like, but the 40s, the 30s, the 20s. I'm just trying to learn a song at the moment. I was doing research in it one day when we were young.
Oh yeah.
But it's a bit funny because it's like, oh yeah, but who did it originally? It's like, oh, this guy in 1891. It's actually it was covered by Beethoven in 1801. When he put it in one of his operas. So it's like, that's pretty good lineage.
Yeah,
I'm having trouble with it because it's written by Johann Strauss.
Yeah. Well, I watched Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And they said, where did you get metal from?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, it's from Holst's The Planets.
Yeah.
And so it's that thing where they do Mars and it's got it's with the orchestra and Geezer Butler said, oh, I thought that was pretty cool, and so I took it in and I said to these guys, oh, what do you think of this? And metal was born.
Yeah, well, I saw a show once that said that metal's direct antecedent is the invention of the church organ. In the 18th century. For the first time in human history, you had infinite sustain on an instrument. It didn't happen again until the electric guitar. It's like all those pipes, and all the peasants are shitting themselves, going, "Oh, God is great." And it was like, I'm hanging on to this chord, I'm going to add this note and that note. I mean, those big organs, they're scary, right, when they fire up. And not until the big amp and the... Yeah.
Okay.